Hi, everyone. I'm Rashid, VP Advertising at Teals, the global media platform. Today, for Future of Brand e-commerce, I will be hosting a Q&A session with an amazing speaker. Our speaker is Head of Digital Transformation at KR Mediacom, the WPP agency. Last year, she was a finalist for Women in Tech Young Leader of the Year award. She specializes in media innovation, focusing on the role that cutting-edge technology like AI, blockchain, AR have an impact on the customer experience. Throughout her career, she advised Mediacom clients at global and local levels, spanning a variety of industries, FMCG, pharmaceutical, and luxury, on embracing those emerging technologies. She also holds a master in machine learning and is a passionate advocate for ethical data use and responsible AI. She is the creator of artificialintelligence.org, a platform designed to empower people to focus less on finding the perfect answer and instead educate them on asking the right question when it comes to AI ethics. Our amazing speaker is Jessica Chapeau. Jessica, thank you for joining us for this Q&A session.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Rashid.
Jessica, we've heard many times that COVID-19 is not an agent of change for our industry, but an accelerator of trends that were already happening. It has been true for the beauty and luxury industry, which model has been completely challenged like no other industry. E-commerce has probably been the only bright spot for beauty and luxury brands. They've been experiencing 3 years of growth in 3 months. And in the US, we're talking about 5 years of growth in 3 months. This acceleration has been truly impressive. Today, I'd like to discuss with you e-commerce for the beauty and luxury industries and how brands can capture the new digital shopper and maximize their prospecting opportunities. So I'm gonna start with the billion-dollar question. Is this new demand for e-commerce here to stay? Is it sustainable for the beauty and luxury industry?
I mean, if only I had a crystal ball for some of that, but I think on the most part, COVID has absolutely really just accelerated the inevitable in the digital space, not just for e-com, but specifically for e-commerce. You know, as you've asked and as you've touched upon, I think the UK is in a really great spot, which is the good news. As a market, we're definitely a leader in Europe, and that is set to continue definitely throughout 2023 and hopefully beyond, but definitely certainly until then from what we're seeing from the industry data that's coming out. And even that's propelled by things like m-commerce as well. That mobile aspect of it, and I'm sure we'll touch upon it later in terms of consumption habits, is really propelling the UK to kind of hold that pole position in terms of leading the way for e-com. And I think the thing about e-commerce as well is that it is so dependent on, the consumption habits and the shopping patterns, obviously, of consumers, be that from physical retail, but also to online, and how that flexes between one world to another as part of the, overarching omni-channel way of being. And I think another thing that's interesting when it comes to e-com is also how it also dictates and reflects kind of shifting patterns in consumers on the other spectrum as well. So then we also have the rise of trends like things like buy now, pay later, which has rapidly surged in the last 18 months. But I would probably say, given the financial and economic situation that we'll be unfortunately going through now, it'll really accelerate those types of schemes that essentially lower the barrier to entry, especially in a category like luxury, for customers to buy in a much more accessible way than ever before, really.
You talked about data for the UK. I have managed to find a couple of really interesting data for online retail sales. So in September, they represented 26% of the total sales. So already almost a quarter of retail sales are happening online. Q2 was at 30% during the first lockdown. Q3 was a little bit down, but still 27% overall. That's again pretty impressive. My question now will be geared more towards the luxury industry. There were another really interesting headline last week from Hermes quarterly financial results. Basically, the headline was Hermes online shop now drives more revenue than its flagship store in Faubourg Saint-Honoré in Paris. Without sharing anything confidential, can you tell us a bit more what is happening inside those companies as industry-wise? I'm really curious to understand what has been the impact for these brands organization in terms of culture, team, the media they're buying as well?
Yeah, completely. I think this has kind of been the really great part of COVID, as well as in terms of the impact on the internal organizations. Obviously, as consumers, we only see the outward facing kind of campaigns and customer experience, but within those kind of walls of an organization, I would say there's been such, to sum it up in one word, there's been such, agility is massively, has massively been needed, and that those companies that have really banded together across culture, teams, technology in a really agile way are the ones who have really shone, and that's evident in the way that they've been able to deliver to customers, but also look after their workforces as well. I think we've all seen how fast the landscape can change, and you, as marketers, as commercial people, people in the supply chain, we have to be flexible to make changes to the business strategy, any second, especially in the recent months. So I think having seen the cultural shift, and for me, working in digital, obviously that is something that I'm more biased to, but nonetheless something that I think we really underestimate the power of people, as the more technical things become, especially when we think about like performance marketing and digital transformation. Actually, the more human it needs to become, and I think sometimes people forget that, and they think that kind of falls to the background even more. But it's really about seeing the culture, and whether that's teams and organizationally silos breaking down between marketing, sales, those types of synergies that come to the forefront when something like this happens to organizations, really creates that resilience that businesses need to take the omni-channel approach that can really deliver on the customer's expectations at this current climate. So I think those types of things as things that I've seen with the clients I've worked in, also the agency that I'm in as well at MediaCom, we've definitely gone through that shift at the same time. I think in terms of the media use as well, when I speak about agility, I really mean like dialing up or down with the changing media consumption habits and also those market conditions, but also remembering that sometimes last minute reactivity can also adversely affect your quality as well. So you have to really kind of be quick to react, but also take measured decisions, which is far easier said than done. And also agility when it comes to things like location as well. So in how that shows up in our media, so dialing up or down, dependent on where our customers are and in the context that they feel most comfortable in, which obviously, given the current situation, is at home. But yeah, that has been really interesting to be a part of, but also watch take place.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing this sneak peek what's happening behind the scene for those luxury and beauty brands. Quite an interesting year. I can imagine for them with all those changes you've mentioned. You started to talk a little bit about media, adjusting media to the current consumption. At Teads, we are the global media platform. We help brands distribute their ad in premium digital environments. We've all seen those kind of media consumption habits changing during the first lockdown and continuing to change after the lockdown. How those changing media habits have affected e-commerce from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is, it's, as we all know, it's accelerated it exponentially, especially over the period of May to September was when we definitely saw a great uptick in e-com. And I think it's down to the just surge in people who would just have that time to be on their social media, to be streaming, all of those kind of habits that we don't get to spend as much time doing because we're out and about were just completely amplified during lockdown. I think, for me, there's the two prevalent ones are really social commerce and the gamification commerce kind of elements of it, and how those are really showing up. I think we've seen that Twitch that's massively exploded over the recent months as well. So now they're at about 17.5 million daily active users, which is just phenomenal. Wow. But we've seen, in the luxury space, Burberry, in the beauty space, a lot of brands kind of partnering with these types of platforms and leveraging, the synergies between that younger Gen Z audience, but also the ability to get to live stream in a much more kind of authentic way. And that's even over platforms like Instagram, which is why platforms like Twitch are favored as well, which I find really interesting in terms of wanting to kind of, again, in a luxury context, toe that line between exclusivity, but also accessibility and, being able to be interactive with the community that are there to really just engage. So I think we've seen some really great campaigns that have come out of that platform as well, just because that's where the consumers are. And I think understanding the context at which the customers are in is a really powerful way to tap into engaging brand experiences. And yeah, I think for me, shoppable commerce as well is just completely shattering the purchase journey in terms of when we look at other platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook have released so many updates to their shoppable formats and media that are completely collapsing the way that we as brands, but also as customers, as we all are, because we shop all the time, moving between, discovery and also the final destination, i.e. the checkout. It's such a more, frictionless process. And I think in a way, again, that also then translates to the expectations customers have from us as luxury brands, from us as marketers, to really deliver on that promise as well, and to completely minimize those clicks to purchase in an e-com environment.
On this point of discovery and then shopping the product, I think a question a lot of marketers are probably debating internally right now in this current context is if they should be more brand building or performance advertising. From your point of view, what would be your recommended kind of balance or splits between the two?
Yeah, I think that's a question we get asked so much, and I don't think that question's ever really going to go away as much as things progress onwards. I think I just find it interesting because there is that lingering tension between brand and performance marketing that still exists, as much as long-term planning often conflicts with like the immediate brand goals as well. And I think for us, it's about doing what makes sense given the objectives that we have. So the kind of short answer for that question from me always is, there is no one size fits all, especially when it comes to the brand and performance. I think it's essentially about blurring the lines between brand and performance, just as we do with online and offline for e-commerce. There is no, physical store versus the online. It's complementary. So I think by looking at that complementary aspect of it, it kind of opens you up to the ability to be able to create, campaigns that are essentially working towards the same goal. In some instances, especially in social, on social platforms, we look more towards a kind of 60-40 principle, right. 60% branding, 40% performance, which does seem to work in terms of the results that we see off the back of it. And I think in the luxury industry as well, brand is incredibly important, and that's something that we always have to be cognizant of. So I think there's definitely no one size fits all approach, but needless to say, there are quite serious costs when brands focus too heavily on one or the other. So I think top of the funnel branding efforts where there's no clear path to purchase can really impact your conversion, but solely focusing on the bottom of the funnel will really impact the ability to grow your business over the long term. So it really is about balancing the short and long term thinking to a solution that feels more right, and that delicate balance between the two to achieve the really highest level of effectiveness and growth over the long term, because that's really important.
Another topic that we feel really passionate about at TEEDS is prospecting. There's a really interesting quote from a very famous luxury analyst, Erwan Ramberg. He wrote a fantastic book called Future of Lux. And basically in his latest analysis, he's saying the luxury sector is currently a recruitment more than a repeat purchase market. And we had very similar feedback from different media director from also different industries. I think it was the Adidas Global Media Director explaining last year at I think it was a F Week event that 60% of their total revenue were coming from first-time buyers, and yet many marketers tend to over focus on the existing consumer. Recently, I heard very similar feedback actually from a high-end fashion brand that I cannot name here today, but they were basically telling me that 2/3 of their e-commerce revenue were coming from first-time buyer. How important is prospecting from your point of view for the brands you're working with and your clients?
Yeah, I think for us, prospecting is definitely something that is important. I think historically, working with across the luxury industry with various different clients, it's a challenge internally to get the right buy-in across an organization for a tactic like prospecting. So that tends to be something that definitely there's that internal like channel conflict with. But I think we've really seen that it's not just prospecting that benefits us, but it's the level of prospecting that we implement. So always on prospecting is something that we, really we find it is really integral to the success of a brand's campaign, just because it means you get those lower CPMs due to the longer buys that you have, and we see like a lot more higher audience availability as well. And for any luxury brand and just I think even outside of the category in general, consistent and regular presence in front of your target audience, especially in a climate like now, is really important for building that brand awareness, recall, and the purchase intent as well. And then from a storytelling perspective, the tactics that we employ for prospecting are really important to give us that added opportunity to tell a more immersive story over that extended period of time. Because sometimes you run into the trap of, again, short-term versus long-term, giving those really short tactical bursts that, again, when you're looking at things from a digital perspective, refining and optimizing that over time is a struggle, and you don't get the benefits that you really are due in terms of maximizing every single pound that you're spending on your campaigns. So I think that's something that we work really hard on, as well as obviously then looking at how we can combine like contextual and behavioral approaches, and how that ladders up into our audience strategy as well.
You talk about short-termism. We are like few weeks for Christmas. The UK will enter on Thursday into a second lockdown, and with increase on like competition building up for the holiday season, that tend to translate into higher customer acquisition cost. What will be your recommendation for brands for let's say the running to Christmas, because we have a really specific running to Christmas this year?
Yeah, I think I'm really hoping that, to be honest, the increase in interest and demand during this time will really offset the surge in the bid prices that lead up to Christmas. I think that, seasonal events like Black Friday for us and our clients in the luxury industry obviously aren't a priority for retail at the moment, that we would like to align with. But it's really, I think, potentially looking to downweight activity during that time to minimize our exposure to any inflated bids across display and social, would be how we're looking to approach that with some of our clients. I also think in terms of the customer acquisition cost as well, I think that's an interesting part, and also a starting point. I think there are so many other things that we also look at to really give a more holistic view outside of just the customer acquisition cost. I know the way that we have moved, to measure our outcomes is really against like cost per visit, purchase ratio, customer lifetime value. And I think getting our head around all of these things in tandem with customer acquisition really helps understand what the great success of how we're looking at all of our media. And that's definitely where, with partners like Tees, we've really also seen great success by looking at those outcome-based metrics like cost per landing page visit as well. Really allows you to kind of be able to tie back your media to the value that we're generating. And again, harping back a little bit on the conversation we had about performance versus branding, it's a really integral part as well to kind of join the dots between those, and also help internally those teams talk to each other.
We talked about brand building, performance advertising. We talked about prospecting, and in digital right now, we cannot talk about digital without talking about data. What's your point of view about data? Has it finally became the new oil for the beauty and luxury industry that we've heard so much over the last few years?
Yeah, I think I love that phrase is still rolling around as well, that data's the new oil. I'm waiting for another mathematician to come out with something else. I think, yeah, the metaphor definitely holds up well for luxury as well. I think if data is viewed as, a crucial commodity, and it can really be a powerful resource to glean insight, to glean the understanding of not just what our customers want, but who they are in a GDPR compliant way. I think it's, as with oil, basically, I think it needs to be refined, and that is the key when it comes to data. It needs to be processed, and this is where it comes down to the power of the teams that you have, and the skills required to be able to interpret the data correctly, and then also in the context of luxury, it's so important to basically put the person in personalization. It allows us to create those really intimate experiences with intelligent context, which, when luxury is so synonymous with one-to-one service, especially in an in-store environment, it allows us to get that one step closer to delivering on that promise in a digital environment. So I think that's something that is definitely going to become even more crucial, given the way that we're moving as an industry with the cookieless world, and that's something that we as agencies, but also as brands, need to prepare for. I think there's a lot coming through in terms of user level profiling that might not be as robust without our cookies available, and those profiling tools are still likely to be available, but rather than cookie-based profiling, we'll be able to really profile first-party data instead. And I think that first-party data pool is going to be so integral to how we are able to deliver those exceptional experiences to customers as well. That's just, my thought on it.
So first-party data is the new gold, or the new diamond for the luxury industry. Jessica, we talked about data, we talked about prospecting, we talked about the shift in the media mix to match where the audience are spending time. We talked how those brands have been really agile and adapted to the new environment. We are seeing a surge in e-commerce. E-commerce seems to be here to stay, definitely for luxury brands. Jessica, thank you so much for your time today. I wish you a really good rest of the day, and thank you for the audience for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great.
To stay at home, protect our NHS, and save lives.
Will I cry? Will I leave behind broken and crumbled signs, hiding all my roads to you? And if I fight, will I come to life, calling for all your light, giving all my heart to you? And I've been falling, I've been lost, and I've been calling on my ghost. I put it to rest because I'm coming home, coming home. Taking all my roads to you. I will fight, I will come to life, calling for all your lights, giving my light back to you. And I've been falling, I've been lost, and I've been calling on my ghost. I put it to rest because I'm coming home, coming home. you.